Welcome back. It's the Scaling Secrets podcast. Maxwell Rabin is here, and Maxwell is the Senior Vice President at TTR Sotheby's International Realty. He has over 20 years of experience, more than 1,000 successful transactions, and he is ranked among the top agents in the DC area, and he co-hosts the popular real estate podcast Keyed In. So we'll find all sorts of insight, secrets, fun stories about real estate, social media, teamwork, and so much more. So Maxwell, glad to be speaking with you.
Likewise, thanks for having me, Robert. And just a quick thing, totally okay. My last name is pronounced Rabin, and a lot of people get that wrong, but it's no problem. Don't worry about it. I loved the intro, so really thank you very much for that. Maxwell Rabin, just so you know.
Okay, wish I had a time machine. Maxwell Rabin. I'm a Rabin fan, maybe. And so we introduced you a little bit, but in your own words, what are you all about? What do you want to be known for? What are you proud of as far as your accomplishments?
Personally, I would say being in real estate for this long, kind of a surreal experience. I think that what I'd probably want to be known for or think about myself is just being the best realtor I can be, doing my job to the absolute best level I can, being on top of things, providing the best service for my clients. I know it sounds like you might hear this kind of stuff all the time, but really truthfully, when I think about doing my job, when a client comes to me and says, like, I want to sell my house, I'm just trying to tune into that and really find out what it is they're looking for. Are they going through are they getting into a bigger house? Or are they moving out of the area? Or are they going through a divorce? I want to tune into those things and find out what the pain and pleasure points are and help them as absolutely best as I can. And along the way, that's what my clients and my cheerleaders have always told me that I was the best at, is like really listening and finding out exactly what it is they want rather than looking for what I want, which is a quick sale or whatever every realtor wants. But it's like listening to the client and being there for them. And sometimes it doesn't always add up to a transaction at the end of it. Sometimes, the market conditions aren't going to lead you there or what the client is looking for. So you just have to be honest with your client. You have to be honest with yourself about how it's going to go. And to me, that's what I'm all about. That's like literally that's my whole job.
And I find value in that. And I think that no matter what profession you're in, even if you're like an attorney or an accountant or something like that, there's that value in getting to know who your customer is and knowing what their story is, what led them to you, what your service will then transform them into become. And it's polite, and very few people ask this sort of thing. And then I assume it also, like you said, it gets you excited about what you're doing for them. Now they're not just some other task to be performed, some other client to switch to. You're helping them get to the next step, to solve their problems, to pursue their dreams. And I can only imagine some of the cool real estate that you come across and deal with, right? You're in the Washington, D.C. area. I imagine you're kind of high end just from what little I know about you. And so what's the typical sort of property like? Have you seen any just like really interesting people, interesting kind of pieces of real estate?
I'd say almost everyone we work with is really quite interesting. I don't know if you and your listeners know, but this area happens to be one of the most highly educated areas in the entire country. And so we're always dealing with people who have multiple degrees, and they're, when you look them up on LinkedIn, partner at law firm, or now there's a lot of tech money in town. I'm always extremely impressed with the clientele in DC, and it's sneaky clientele too. They're people that are unassuming. They're not out there driving a Lamborghini. They could certainly buy 3 or 4 if they wanted to. And so, yes, we're working in high-end properties. And also, DC is interesting. DC's changed a lot over the last 10 years, 10 to 20 years in terms of real estate. I live in Georgetown, Washington, D.C., and my office is in Georgetown. Georgetown is a historic neighborhood, and all the houses you'll see here were built between the 1700s and the early 1900s. There's some newer houses being built now, but they have to be built by a certain standard. So when you're walking through the neighborhood, you're getting this effect of like this historic place. But inside of these houses it's a totally different world. I mean, people, they put a lot of money into these places, but they tone it down in their own way. It's like, it's over the top, but you wouldn't know. And I find that to be really interesting. And that's like, everyone's got their own thing that they're doing. And what another funny thing that happens in our business is someone might buy a $5 million house. I think one just traded around the corner for $5.5 million. I'm almost guaranteeing that the next people that buy that are going to gut the entire house and rebuild the entire thing. It just happens all the time around here. I don't know if that I don't even know if that answered a question, but these are the kinds of interesting things that we see and we deal with, and you have to kind of know that about the clientele.
It does answer, because it's always fun, just no matter what the industry is, to find out what excites a person and feel some of that energy coming off. And I am a fan of just going on Zillow sometimes and just browsing through and just flipping through and seeing of all the cool things. And there are so many Instagrams and Facebook groups and Reddits where there's all the crazy real estate, where the house might be unassuming or like kind of unique and traditional and old-fashioned on the outside, and once you look inside, it's just there's a whole theme of the house, or just some secret lair or basement level, and that's always a lot of fun. Yeah. Kind of just to see the creativity that's been expressed in all sorts of ways, and someone saying, well, here's my space and I'm going to be spending a lot of time in it, and this is the way that I choose to express myself. And they put just so much work, and who knows how many months or years or hundreds of thousands or millions into all of the gutting and the renovation. And so it's so nice to hear about your excitement and your energy. And so what do you have to say about teamwork? I know that you're big on that. So how do we step up and show up and give our best and work with people and just deliver these amazing results like you like to do?
Teamwork is huge. We are a small group in our company. In terms of the way the real estate industry has changed a lot, when I first started in the business over 20 years ago, a team of agents might be literally two people. You might have two people working as partners, doing contracts, doing transactions, making sure listings were getting marketed effectively. And give me 1 second. I'm sorry, Robert. There's a fire truck going by here.
It's the teamwork police. They say you're doing too good a job.
That's right. That was a ladder. I think I can't imagine there's a bigger truck going after that one. What I would say is that with the industry changing, there's a lot of large teams out here in the real estate landscape now. Teams of like 10 people, 20 people, all under the umbrellas of the larger corporate brokerages. Our team is very small. I work with one of the owners of the company, who is the person I worked with when I first started in the business. It was like a very random kind of re-encounter with him through like my mom and after I finished college. And he's like, well, tell Max to get a real estate license and we'll make some money. I've literally been working with him for 24 years. So it was just the two of us for a long time. And then as things evolved with technology, obviously like the rise of social media in our business, and just the speed of everything, different tools like Zip Forms and DocuSign, things are happening more rapidly, volume is going up, and you're keeping up with the Joneses requires more eyes and ears, basically. So we've grown our team a little bit. We have 5 people on the team, 3 agents with 2 assistants, and it's a constant day-to-day interaction. We have our sort of different roles that we play, but we have to collaborate a lot, make a lot of decisions on how we want things to look, especially with social media. In fact, I just gave a seminar yesterday about social media with some other incredible agents in the Sotheby's Realty Network, and everyone has their own kind of philosophy about it. Ours is really straightforward. For our team, we're looking for elegant, we're looking for refined. Not all of our listings are like $4 or $5 million houses. We have, I have a $850,000 condo on the market, a $725,000 row house, but we want everything to kind of still have that effect of clean, presented, well lit. Look like all of those kinds of things have to be even. We can't have anything looking janky, right? Thank God technology has caught up with this for our industry. I mean, you can do so much with just an iPhone 15 Pro right now. It's incredible. But we also have our professional photographers using much more expensive equipment. So that's kind of one of our main things, is like how we want things to look, and how that's a teamwork aspect. And then it's just managing transactions. So when we have a new client or we have a seller client, we always want to make sure that the client knows exactly who's going to be talking to them when. We're not missing anything. We're 1 to 2 steps ahead in the process. I hate it when I get an email from a client saying, when am I supposed to switch my gas bill? I don't want them to ask me that. That's stupid. We should be way ahead of those kinds of things. So this is just part of the day-to-day teamwork aspect of a real estate team. And that's why you have a team. Otherwise, you do miss things. If you're out there as an individual agent and you're trying to really capitalize on the market and have great volume, you want to sell 10 million a year or 20 million a year or beyond, you're going to need help. You're going to have to work with a team. So that's the way of the world right now.
And the way of the world is quite exciting. These things that you mentioned, how there's there's iPhones, there's the DocuSign, there's the speed of the turnaround, and so it seems like you're big on your standards, knowing what they are, and saying we want elegant, and because I imagine that there's people that really have things dialed in, and then there's other, maybe the cautionary tales, or people, realtors or groups that could get to your level, and it seems like there's that aspect of some people don't even know what their standards are, and maybe they should be thinking
True.
about, like, what are those keywords and key phrases, so that way if we look at a listing, look at what the photographer took photos of, or how we stage the room, we know if we there or if it's not. And then there's also the kind of mechanical aspect you mentioned there of your process. And is your process written down, and have you taken care of all the nooks and crannies? And have we told this person what they need to know ahead of time? Do they know when to change the gas bill? And it seems much easier said than done, right? And I think all the time about, like, with my own team, I'm like, well, do I need to rewrite my SOPs, and am I too detailed versus not enough? And the sorts of things ever cross your mind, like, well, I want to, I want to have the 200-point checklist all figured out, but I'm worried about over detail or over complicating. How do we balance that? How do we make sure that everything is taken care of, but that we don't write like a whole encyclopedia's worth of a manual to make sure everything happens?
I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing to one day or over a course of days really take the time to sit down and really think those things out. Maybe it's just for you personally within your team if you're a team leader, but to really write down like the instruction manual of whatever it is you do and how you want things to go with each client. And for all the mistakes that you may have made along the way too. It's like, well, that didn't go so well, or that was a little slip up. I'm sure it didn't cost the deal, or it didn't cost the client, but we, again, trying to avoid those kinds of things. And so maybe that's another little bullet point there. And when you're working with a team, obviously you can't have your team like, just refer to my instruction manual. It's not going to work like that. We're human beings. So I think trusting your team to understand those things, those details as they're happening, making sure that you're, like, I can be a little intense sometimes. I think I've toned it down over the years, if you can believe that. I make people cry, like in the office. I would get so upset about things. But you have to trust the people you're working with and why you hired them. You have to have faith in that, and that they'll own their mistakes and mistakes and know how to learn from that. I don't know. That's like the best advice I can give is you got to have to a degree, trust the people you work with and trust yourself, and to learn all of these things as you're going along. But I don't think it's a bad idea to write some of these things down. Maybe it's not like the perfect instruction manual. Maybe it's not like your Moleskine like notebook with the bullet points in it. But I do take notes all the time. In my phone, I do have a couple notebooks, and it could be something random. I'm on a phone call, someone's talking, and I'm just taking a couple notes. It might not even be something that I'm going to refer to later, but I don't know. It's just a way to like jog the brain just one more time about something. Like, didn't like the way that felt, didn't like the way that happened. And then discuss it with the team. Just discuss it with the team. It doesn't have to be like some kind of like big speech. It doesn't have to be someone's in trouble, but just make sure they know. Make sure they know what you thought and how it made the client feel, or anything like that. That's part of the education process.
I love it. There's something to always being open to improving, knowing that you'll never quite achieve perfection, but you can always continue on that path, and that sort of mental momentum of saying to yourself that I always be on the lookout for how I can do a little bit better. And then I like that how you were talking about with the instructions that you create. Don't just make it as a way to just give it to others, like use it for yourself. Use it so that way it's your own instructions. And then even if you do share it, don't just refer people to it, like kind of have that blend of the written material plus the kind of active thinking and help other people out. And so this transformation you've gone through of working better with your team and of saying like, okay, well, I have these high expectations and I have this focus and I am an intense guy, but I'm not as mean as I used to be. Like, how did that happen? Was that like a conscious decision? Was it over time? Was there a moment? How did you get from 10 to 15 years ago to like you're still yourself, but kind of you have more layers?
So I'd say I give a couple reasons for that. One is the gentleman who I mentioned, who I've been working with for a long time. His name is Jonathan Taylor. He's been kind of a mentor to me in the business and in life, right? He's almost 20 years older than me. He has grown kids now. And I think that like watching him in the way he runs the entire brokerage as well as our team and how he handles all kinds of different people and their problems has helped a lot. And he's also been he's been direct with me over the years, and but too judgmental, like kind of lets me go with my instincts and flow as well. But in those moments where I've been like maybe too harsh or too critical of something, I'm not an idiot. I see the way he reacts to things too, and I know that like it was probably the better route. And you just have to you're learning from doing, and you're also learning from seeing other people in element. And I think that the other major thing for me over the last several years is I moved in with my girlfriend and her two daughters. So I have two children that I'm now taking care of all the time. And that really causes you to take a step back, because you can be intense with kids, but they're also individuals and they're going through their own things too. And you can only push so much before things start to push back. And you realize that your life is going to continue no matter what, whether or not they did their homework or whether or not they made their bed or whatever the type A thing that I'm dealing with right now. And so that also down too. And that translates over to business. And by the way, people can sense that about you and the way that I changed specifically. They can sense like something's different. You seem happier or calmer. It's like because the intensity, you have to dial it back. It's like you can't live that way. And maybe it's just, getting older. I don't know. Things change, You get more comfortable in your own skin.
Right. Patience and perspective. And I've experienced that as well with having a kid, and just sometimes they just don't want to cooperate, and you have to say, well, is this the word thing, or I have to come up with other strategies, versus when you're younger, you might be more of a fire hose and just say, well, if I don't get what I want, if this isn't working, then you let your emotions take over, and that may work for a while, but over the many years, you might kind of be getting tired of those same results and wanting to do something a little bit differently. And so this is all exciting to talk about. And since this is the Scaling Secrets podcast, and you've been on your real estate journey for over 20 years, I'm curious about what the pivots have been, because you think about when you're in a small team, or you're lower rung in the ladder, there's a certain kind of thinking and kind of way you act, versus when things get bigger or you kind of delegate more, it's different. So how is your process and your mindset and your actions different now versus all those years ago?
That is a great question. I don't know if we had any pre-show notes, but I can tell you the one sea change for me is my personal story. I went through a period of time when I was younger in my young career where straight up I had a problem with drugs and alcohol, okay? And I was a high functioning individual, and I was really able to get a lot of stuff done. I was able to do well in the business, I was younger. I could handle things. I could be out late and then still get up in the morning and pretend to be normal, so to speak. But I can tell you, in my mid-30s, that really wasn't working for me anymore. It was too much of a struggle, and I just quit drinking cold turkey, like without any other kind of help. I just really consider myself to be a strong mental person. And by the way, this is not judgment being passed here for anyone and their struggles, because everyone goes through these kinds of things on their own way. For me, this is what worked. I literally just decided that if I was a really strong mental person, if I have real confidence in myself, then I can let that go, if this is the way it really makes me feel. And so I did. I just let it go. And I found that like the energy towards my career and my business came back very quickly, and other things too. All the other things that I had been doing in my whole life, like playing music. I started playing music more again. I'm a guitarist. I went to music school when I was in college. And all of these things came back like with an extreme rush of energy. And so that's pretty much the track that my career has taken since that time period. And it's been honestly like exponential, the way things have changed for me, the amount of business I've been doing, the types of people that I'm meeting, and also the way I can turn things down without worrying about it too. It's like I don't need to be at the next happy hour party or whatever, I'm comfortable with that too. It doesn't mean I'm not networking and I'm not taking advantage of those opportunities and those events. It's just a different attitude towards the whole thing. But that is definitely the biggest hinge point for me, and it has definitely changed my whole career in my life. So.
I love it. And that's a powerful concept of being comfortable in your own skin and being judgment free, because we can't no idea of knowing what this or that person is going through, and all you can really control is yourself. But as far as your own habits, patterns, cycles, to really think, okay, well, do I really need the alcohol? And if you say no, well, then could you go X amount of time without it? And would your life be differently if you weren't kind of depending on that? It's a lot to dig through. It's kind of a personal journey there. And it's cool that you kind of tapped into that and figured that out and kind of came through it and it seems like a better person because of it, just because you had the awareness and tried it out, and then kind of were able to see that how things had changed after that. And so you're big on social media and with real estate. And so what sort of trends are you seeing? Like, how has real estate and social media changed these last few years?
Well, social media and real estate really go hand in hand. Real estate is an extremely aesthetic industry, and it's an aesthetic. Obviously, we can thank HGTV and $1 Million Listing and all of that for celebrity and the media into real estate. Also, the ease of technology. But I think that if you're in real estate, if you're in the real estate business, especially in residential, and you're trying to create a for yourself, that's the number one easiest way to do it. And it's generally, unless you're spending a lot of money on videographers, or you think that you are going to take on like a whole, like Google ads or something like that. For the most part, most of the stuff we do is free. I mean, other than the equipment, obviously we have to spend money on procuring the business through other marketing means, in terms of, like, we still do mailings and everything. We keep up with our clients in all kinds of different ways. But on social media, it's our feed. It's our live feed of what we're doing every day. We are posting where we are. We're posting the properties that we're selling. We're posting the properties that we're showing, other things about the industry that interest us. And my advice to any realtor who is new to the game and getting better at it is, watch what other successful agents are doing on social media, and don't be scared to copy them or figure out what kind of style they're using. But don't expect the same results necessarily, but you have to kind of find your own voice and your own brand through social media. And I think that's really one of the only ways you're really going to succeed in real estate in this current market, unless you're doing some other kind of level of real estate. But out here in like the broadcast world of full service brokerage, you got to be on there. You got to be doing it.
You have to be on there to keep up. And then there's that kind of fun idea that you mentioned about seeing what everyone is doing, but you really only see the top layer, right? You see what the end result is and what they post, but you're not really sure how they got all those followers or how they got all that engagement. All you see is what they're doing now. And so that is freeing in a way, because there's no one to copy exactly. There's only one you, so you can kind of see what's being done, what kind of things they're posting, what they're doing, how often, get some ideas, but then go out and do it yourself and be your own person. And so is there anything that you're particularly proud of or that is noteworthy? Like, I mean, I can only imagine, like we've been saying, the Washington, D.C. area, it's so rich in history. There's so much cool stuff. I'm sure it really lends itself well to the images and the videos and the posts, but was there any sort of like social media campaigning or posting that just really stands out for you that you've done?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this the other day when we were getting ready for that other seminar. Was TikTok has been really generous to me. I know I know this podcast will be out there for people to listen to forever, but as of right now, there's a lot of talk about what's going to happen with TikTok. But TikTok's been great, and I started on TikTok about 4 years ago in the middle of the pandemic, when TikTok was pretty young actually in the media world. And that was helpful because there weren't a ton of eyeballs, and there weren't a ton of real estate people, especially in DC, using it yet. And I was just starting to put these videos together. I was other agents in New York doing walkthrough videos of apartments with great views, but they weren't even doing voiceovers or anything. It was just like, here's an apartment, here's some music, boom, it's on TikTok. And I was like, that guy has like 100,000 views on that one apartment. Why am I not doing this? So I just started taking videos of everything I was doing. And then I started doing the voiceovers, and there was one house in Chevy Chase, which is a neighborhood here in DC, and it was a brand new construction house. They weren't even done with it. There were guys up on ladders, and I just took some videos of it, and I did a voiceover totally off the cuff. Didn't write a script, just did a voiceover using the app, using like the same kind of headphone I'm using right now, and it went viral. It had like 100,000 views in like an hour. I was like, what just happened? I don't know if TikTok was just like, you know, they want to get people excited about their app, so they're like, here, make this viral. I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes of TikTok. But it was like very thrilling, and that gave me another new level of energy towards social media at the time, and we've sort of you know, molded that into other things with Instagram and grown those accounts. And I'm not believe me, but it is fun to be recognized for those things when I'm out and about. And I've certainly earned real business from the social media accounts, purely from the social media. And I would just add to being consistent on it. And, you know, like we were just saying, I may have found my voice there, and I know how to do that product and that brand on that particular platform, and it's worked in my
fun. And I can definitely see what you're talking about as far as the voyeurism of real estate, and just saying like, hey, there's the scaffolding, they're doing construction, let's just take the video and be consistent. And there's also seems to be some amount of strengthening the muscle of saying, you know, of course it will be awkward at first, and of course I won't know exactly how to work the app and post the videos, but if you just start doing it without thinking and then repeat it, then you get better over time, and you up your game, and you get a better idea of what to film and post and you know, to do to grow the account. And that seems like a lot of fun that you're having. And there's also something in there about getting into it early, because it seems like every few years one of these other platforms comes across, and you hear about it, but you don't really join it or take it seriously, and then it blows up, and then you say, oh, I wish I'd joined it. I wish I'd registered the same username as on the other platforms instead of having to then settle, and I wish I'd been posting on day one instead of on day 301 when the app to grow, before it was all crowded. And so and the next TikTok and the next one, I mean, there's never ending. We just have to keep in mind next time and jump on it, but still beyond what is popular now. And so it's been a lot of fun talking with you about all these things that you've accomplished. Is there room, or do you have any ideas about a failure story? Has there been any time when there's just been a catastrophic mishap that you feel like sharing?
Okay, give me 1 second to think about this. I mean, you know, we just such a competitive market here. I mean, we're swimming with sharks out here in this real estate market. I can't attribute anything to like catastrophic failure based on what we're doing, but I will say this. I will say that when you're in this kind of business, I would say in real estate or anything where you're going to be pitching for business or accounts or clients, you have to be conscious of who it is you're meeting with, who the competition is for that specific job, and be careful of how much energy you put towards that, knowing who the competition is. And so you have to sort of do your homework, do your research. Who are you meeting with? For in real estate, what is the property? Who do those people know? Who are they likely to know? And we've definitely found ourselves in the situation for significant properties. You know, these are the kind of properties where there might be 2 or 3 sales a year at the level that we're talking about in DC. And you have to know if you're either the favorite or the fool. This is from a recent book. I can't remember the name of the book. It's not on the top of my head right now. The favorite or the fool. So we've run into this a few times where we're in and up. We've done a ton of research. I mean, we're putting together these RFPs. There's so much research, pulling data from different sources, all the stuff these people are asking for. You get to the appointment, they're looking at you like smile face, like you're like, this feels great, the energy is so great. Later you find out that the person you're meeting with is literally related to an agent at your competitor. We probably could have known that ahead of time, okay? And it's like, these are the kinds of, they're not catastrophic mistakes, but you could probably avoid hours of work where you could be on the tennis court or working with another client or doing something that you would really enjoy, rather than busting your ass knowing you're never going to get this business, if you follow me.
Right. You could put your time and energy into someone who appreciates you. And something that hit me really hard a few months ago was there was something about how anger is related to expectations and disappointment as well. And if you're angry about the outcome of a deal that fell through or something, it's because maybe your expectations were too high. So if you did a little bit of this due diligence and said, well, I'll still be prepared and I'll still put in the work,
Right.
but I won't be completely over the top obsessed and excited about it because that's setting myself up for a failure. It's not a reason not to try, but you're not going to really like, maybe you only over deliver, not over deliver. And that way you can put your energy and focus into what has a good chance of working or people who appreciate you. So I find that kind of interesting to think about is like if something doesn't seem like it has that big of a chance, then why kill yourself and why do all this obsession even though it has almost no chance of working? And so as far as the wisdom and insights that you have for us today, is there anything that you think is left out of our conversation or any really nuggets that I wish I'd asked you about?
Yeah, something that came up recently was people ask about the social media thing and they ask about being on camera. I will admit, also having a podcast has given me a lot of reps, and like you had a lot of reps doing this. Like you're comfortable speaking off the cuff and sort of flowing with yourself. You can go back and listen to yourself and be like, oh, I want to change that. I said too many times. There's all kinds of things you can change, but you're not going to find that out about yourself, and you're not going to find out about how to be in those situations without actually doing it. And again, with the technology, you can always turn the camera on yourself. You can edit things. You can change the lighting. You can do all these things. And also, what's important to keep in mind is that when you are putting yourself out there like this, you're speaking, you're hearing your own voice, you're like, ooh, I don't like that, it makes me uncomfortable. That's a pretty natural reaction. Just remember that when people see you, even on the street, they're seeing you the way they see you. You see you the way you, that's different from how they see you. They're seeing themselves in a weird way. They look in the mirror and they go, oh, I don't like my hair today. And you might look at them and go like, oh, cool hair. So just keep that in mind. Like, just be open to being comfortable with yourself. This is something that I've been talking about lately, and I think a lot of people are really still shy and like I wouldn't call it immature, but it's a natural thing to be shy. There's no need. You can just be yourself. It's okay. You're to do it. So
You can do it anyway. It's not a prerequisite, and the feeling you have about yourself is relative, just like how you feel a certain way about others and they feel about you. Everyone has those different paths. And the other day, I clicked into a folder that was full of like a couple of years of podcasts of me, and I saw all these thumbnails of myself, and it was oldest to newest. And I was scrolling down, I experienced what you're talking about, where the first ones I was awkward, and I could just, probably no one else would pick up on it, but I could just tell from my face and my posture and my stance and my shoulders and all that, it was awkward. But as I scrolled down closer to the present, there was a no change, and it got better just by putting in the reps, like you're saying. And I think that's a really helpful message for many people who are shy. And like you said, it is natural, but there's who knows how many people how many millions are on social media, how many realtors are posting on TikTok, doing live streams. Many others have found a way to figure it out, and it's your turn to do it as well. So what sort of awareness do you want to get today? Like, what's your website, contact details? If someone listens to our podcast, where do you want them to go? What do you want them to do?
You can find me on Instagram at RabinMax, B as in boy, INMAX. And then I'm on TikTok at Maxwell Rabin _properties. Those are my two biggest channels for content. And you can easily get in touch with me through any other means. There's a link tree on either one of those accounts, which you can send me a message directly. I will respond ASAP. If you have any questions about what we do on social media, or if you have any real estate needs in the DC area or beyond, we are connected and networked up throughout the country and globally through the Sotheby's International Realty Network. It's an incredible family of agents. And I look forward to talking to or helping anyone who's listening.
Very amazing. So if you want to know about social media or real estate, as you said, DC area or beyond, so that because you can connect to someone else, then find Maxwell Rabin on those platforms. And then really quick, tell us about the Keyed In podcast. Why should someone tune into that? And what's fun and unique about that?
The Keyed In podcast was a little project. You may remember an app called Clubhouse that was sort of popular during the pandemic and then disappeared. And another agent and I were hosting like little conversations on Clubhouse. And I was like, this is a waste of time because people will just come on. We don't necessarily want them as our guests on our little Clubhouse, but you have to be like super polite to them because you can't be a jerk on Clubhouse. And I said, this is not evergreen. I mean, we're on here spending our time talking, but it's not recorded. We can't repackage it. So the idea was, why don't we start a podcast? So we literally did, and we started doing it on a similar app to what we're using today, because it was during the pandemic. We couldn't be face-to-face with people. And we were just recording interviews with other agents, seeing what was going on during the pandemic, how they were dealing with things. And then my partner, Brent Jackson, who's the co-host, he preferred to keep a studio in town. So once we were able to like meet in person again after the different restrictions were lifted, we started recording it in a studio, and it got much more refined looking, like very well lit. We started having really attractive videos and putting that out there. And most of the content on the podcast is us interviewing other agents in the industry locally, including agents outside of our brokerage. So we've created a lot of goodwill in the brokerage community through that. And also other agents around the country, inside our network and outside of our network, other real estate industry people like developers, all kinds of stuff on there. There's also a real estate blogger, a woman who does a lot of great curated stuff locally. She's been a guest host, and it's been going on for, I guess, over 3 years, and we love it. It's our and like I said, it's given me great reps doing all of this stuff and being face up and researching people and asking good questions. All this stuff translates to business really well. So we really enjoyed doing that podcast.
Wonderful. And you hear about realtors and what those expectations are. And you expect a realtor of any kind to be a social person, to be a people person, and you expect them to have put in the reps and to know their stuff, know their industry. And so these are all very important lessons here, and it's helpful for us to tap into your passion and your energy and just, learn some of these things from you. And so you should also check out that Keyed In podcast and Maxwell Rabin on social media. And as we completely wrap up our conversation here, Maxwell, you're a well-read, well-spoken guy. You're in the DC area where everyone around you has all these multiple degrees. So you've seen and you've learned all sorts of stuff. Is there a helpful quote or lesson that you've come across either recently or long ago that can help us out in our situation today? What comes to mind as far as a final quote or lesson?
One thing that I keep thinking about, another podcaster who I all the time, Scott Galloway, who I'm sure you've heard of. One thing that he says a lot that I'm starting to really understand is, it really resonates with me, is nothing is ever as good, as bad, or as it seems. Okay? So when you have a great piece of business and it's going really well, there's a feeling of elation, but then there's other complications that come after that. So that good feeling, you love that good feeling, but it's not going to last. I mean, it's just nature, right? And it's the same thing with the negative news that you get. Things that seem catastrophic, like not getting a listing or losing to the same agent you've lost to 6 times or whatever. You don't know what that listing happened. The seller could have decided to overprice it, and it could sit there for 3 years while they're waiting to sell that. And that could have been the 3 years of your life that could have been a disaster. So it wasn't as bad as it seems. So nothing is as good or as bad as it seems.
I love it. Catastrophizing, or it goes the other way. So Maxwell Rabin,
right.
A senior vice president at TTR Sotheby's International Realty, co-host of the Keyed In podcast, and at Rabin Max on Instagram, and Maxwell Rabin _properties on TikTok. Wonderful speaking with you, Maxwell.
Robert, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Super.